It's day 2 of the 2024 NFL Draft, and there is a lot to talk about on the Niners front. Coming your way on today's San Francisco 49ers Report by Chat Sports, I'm Chase Sr. Thank you so much for tuning in. According to Mike Silver, the Niners, after drafting wide receiver Ricky Pearsall out of Florida, likely to trade Deebo Samuel. We'll get you caught up on the latest, and one team that has been inquiring about his services. Also on the back end of the show, some Niners Day 2 draft targets and a Day 2 mock draft. Speaking of the draft, we were live round 1, all 32 picks. 30,000 people joined in all throughout the night. It was a blast, and we're going to be going live again tonight. Join us, rounds 2 and 3. Our coverage begins 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 o'clock for those of you rocking with us on the West Coast. Cannot wait to see you all there. Let's talk about Deebo Samuel here, and we've discussed so many rumors, a lot of the speculation about a Brandon Ayuk trade. But after the Niners drafted Ricky Pearsall, who's a good complement to Brandon Ayuk, has a similar game to Deebo Samuel in the sense that he operates out of the slot, is Deebo now on the block? That's what Mike Silver of the San Francisco Chronicle is hearing. And he sent out a couple of tweets late last night after round 1, deep into the morning. And let's just get you caught up on what he had to say on X. And keep in mind that Mike Silver has won a bunch of awards for his reporting, was with SI, Yahoo, NFL Network, Bay Area guy, went to Cal, has known Kyle Shanahan since he was a kid growing up, alongside his pops, Mike Shanahan with the Denver Broncos. Mike Silver has known John Lynch since he was a player on his way to a Hall of Fame career, and he's been on the nose with a lot of the Niners' moves so far this offseason. So what he says, I think, is notable, and you can take stock in it. So this is one tweet. So given that the 49ers took a receiver trading Brandon Ayuk, or possibly Deebo Samuel, very much in play as we head into tomorrow. So they take a wide receiver and now trading Ayuk, possibly Deebo, very much in play going into today. Another tweet. Based on my conversations with other teams, the 49ers are now more likely to deal Deebo Samuel than they are Brandon Ayuk. Stay tuned. And then lastly, play this out. 49ers don't trade Deebo. They pay Brandon Ayuk. Deebo then has a lame duck season in which he watches his successor, Ricky Pearsall, and the incumbent receiver they chose over him be focal points of the offense. Seems awkward. I expect the trade. Very juicy stuff here. And if the Niners were to deal him, could it be for a second-round pick tonight? A third-round pick tonight? Like Mike Silver said, stay tuned. Why a Deebo Samuel trade makes more sense as compared to a Brandon Ayuk trade. For the Niners, they get out from the contract that up to this point, they may have regretted a little bit, and I get it. Special player. Once-in-a-decade type of talent with the home run ability. But since signing that deal, even before that deal, 2020 season, 2022, 2023, he's been banged up, he's expensive, and how sustainable is it for him to continue to play elite football and stay healthy with the playing style that he brings in between the lines? He was shut down in the Super Bowl. And now Kyle Shanahan is looking at an offense where he's probably saying, we need a wide receiver like Brandon Ayuk on the outside who's a great route runner. Deebo, not as good of a route runner. Deebo got shut down in the Super Bowl. Now we have a man and zone beater who's a great route runner out of the slot, doesn't take plays off like Deebo Samuel, is tough, gritty, physical like Deebo, but is now much more affordable than Deebo with Ricky Pearsall. So the fact that Deebo's a limited route runner, all of the other things that I mentioned, and Pearsall more so complements Ayuk now as compared to being an Ayuk replacement and has a similar game out of the slot in that sense like Deebo, a Deebo trade makes a little bit more sense. There's more logic behind it now as compared to trading away Ayuk, who's been the better, more durable, and is still the younger wide receiver. Making sense of the Pearsall pick. I graded it a C. I still think that it was a reach. But after sleeping on it, after listening to what Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch had to say, I can see where they're coming from. I approach my life with an open mind. I try to hear all sides at all times. I will admit when I'm wrong. We'll see if I end up being wrong. This pick didn't make a lot of sense because I thought there were better players on the board, and I thought it was a reach. And I think that you're drafting a player who's a little bit limited physically and is a slot wide receiver, and I don't really take slot wide receivers in the first round. Now, the Niners have their approach to things, and I respect them. There's a reason they've made it to 4 NFC Championship games over the last 5 years, including 2 Super Bowl appearances. But Ricky Pearsall, he's ready to play right now. He lives in the middle third of the field, meaning he's a slot wide receiver who does a lot of his damage in between the numbers, in between the hashes. What does Brock Purdy do well, and what does he excel with? Timing, accuracy, anticipation, leading his receivers, and targeting the middle area of the field. What is the backbone? What is a staple of Kyle Shanahan's offense? It's targeting the middle area of the field. That's where Ricky Pearsall lives as a wide receiver. As far as the intricacies to his game, he's a very refined route runner. Very good footwork. I'm not just saying this because he's a fellow white dude, but a lot of comps out there for Adam Thielen, Cooper Kupp, for the release, the get off, the acceleration, deceleration in and out of his cuts, and how crafty and heady he is. He'll go over the middle. He'll go up for a jump ball. He'll get smacked. He'll get right back up. And the 49ers love wide receivers who are tough, who are rugged, who are grimy. Kyle Shanahan specifically mentioned that he loves what Pearsall brings to the field away from the ball, has a willingness to block. The Niners value wide receivers who are willing to get it out of the mud and who are willing to block. Pearsall also has special teams ability. Never muffed a punt. John Lynch said he didn't do a lot of that at the college level, but believes that he can do a little bit more and grow in that area. And Shanahan even said, we need a punt returner after Ray McCloud signed with the Atlanta Falcons. What does that mean for Trent Taylor? Who the hell knows? But Pearsall is the more gifted player. So for these reasons and more, I can see where the Niners are coming from. I still didn't love the pick because I thought it was a reach. Now going back to Deebo here, according to reports, Josina Anderson, Tom Curran, who is a Patriots insider and a legend in the Boston area, per Josina Anderson, the Patriots have checked in on a Deebo Samuel trade. They've done their due diligence. They've inquired about him. According to Tom Curran, New England has looked into a wide receiver. It has been a long time since they've had a dynamic player at the wide receiver spot. Deebo would be their most gifted wide receiver, arguably, since Randy Moss. Right up there with Julian Edelman. I think Deebo's obviously a better, more gifted, more of a home run player as compared to Julian Edelman. But the point here being, that offense has been so vanilla. They have not prioritized weapons of the ilk of Deebo Samuel. And when you have a young quarterback, or if you go with Jacoby Brissett, you want that weapon to turn garbage into gold. That's what Deebo can do. Jet sweep, handoff, bubble screen, crossers. Looks as though he's bottled up. He turns it into a first down, moves the chains. He turns it into an explosive play, and the Patriots badly need that. So that's kind of the team that would make a lot of sense, who might be willing to fork over, I don't think a second-round pick, a third-round pick, maybe a fourth-round pick. Chase, that compensation's ridiculous. Well, Deebo's been injured. He's getting older. How long can he hold out? And he's under contract for a very lucrative amount of money. So the Niners want a second or a third, but in negotiations anywhere, and take this to the negotiating table for your company. You start high, then you come down from there. I don't think San Francisco can get a second for Deebo. I'd be surprised by that. I think a third is a little bit more realistic. If they get that back, would they move him, considering they're going to run in to some financial constraints, especially because Brock Purdy due for a deal. They're trying to sign Brandon Ayuk. Another option here, just keep everybody. For 2024, keep Brandon Ayuk. Sign him. Backload the deal. Dummy years on it. Backload the money. Keep Deebo Samuel. You have Ricky Pearsall. You have Jawan Jennings. And then you reassess next year. Maybe you try to deal away Deebo. Has a good year, stays healthy, ups his value. I don't think the Niners in 2025 are going to have Deebo Samuel and or Jawan Jennings. I think Jennings is going to be out of their price range. They might try to move off of Deebo so that they can afford Purdy. Ayuk, some other players who are due for contract extensions, like the homegrown Diamador Lenore, like a Charvarius Ward, a Talanoa Hufanga. That's kind of the thought process. Now, if you run it back with those as your top 4 wide receivers, that immediately becomes one of the deepest wide receiver rooms in the entire National Football League. More to get to here on the show. Make sure you subscribe to us here on the 49ers Report for daily Niners coverage. And thank you so much. During night 1 of the draft, we surpassed 132,000 subscribers, the largest Niners YouTube channel out there covering this team on a news basis every single day. Coming up next, day 2 mock draft, some ideas with the Niners going into round 2, round 3, and top targets available for San Francisco here. If you want your Ricky Pearsall jerseys and you're a Ricky Pearsall stan, I was looking at the community tab, a lot of people grading it as a B or a C. You can get your Ricky Pearsall jerseys. Chatsports.com/Pearsall. That link is available down in the show notes and in the comment section of this video and on the community tab of the YouTube channel here. As for the Niners 2024 draft picks, they take Pearsall at 31. 2 picks today as of right now. Second round, 63. Third round, 94 overall. And then tomorrow, rounds 4 through 7, Niners have a bevy of selections. 3 fourth-round picks, a fifth-round pick, 2 sixths, and then a seventh-round pick. In the ESPN mock draft, they have the Niners taking West Virginia center Zack Frasier. Larry Krueger, my man, the legend, YouTube OG, Bay Area radio legend, he loves Zack Frasier. He used to be an NFL and CFL scout. So I respect the scouting mind of Krug. Not joining him today, obviously, because just so locked in with so much of the draft content here on the show. But Zack Frasier fulfills so many needs, and he's a really, really good player. I would like the value here for San Francisco at the back end of the second round. And I think that he could be a plug-and-play center right from the go. 4-time state champion wrestler, which shows in his power and bend. I love offensive linemen who have a wrestling background because they're nasty. Smart player, made pre-snap calls at West Virginia, lacks length and athleticism. You can get away with that at center. It's not like Jason Kelsey, maybe the best center of this generation, was extremely long, but he was athletic and he was nasty. Frasier moves well enough. Here's what the athletic Stain Brugler said about him in his scouting profile. Frasier might not boast elite athleticism or length, but he is good enough in those areas and will win over NFL teams with the core strength, the football IQ, competitive toughness, and understanding of leverage. 34 overall, great. So if the Niners get him at 63, again, solid values. 2023 numbers, overall Pro Football Focus grade 77.5, pass blocking grade 83.8, a run blocking grade of 75.3 on 806 snaps playing in the Big 12, a very competitive conference. He did not allow a sack in 328 pass blocking snaps last year. I think that he immediately becomes a much better player as compared to Jake Brendel. If you want him to play guard, he can certainly do that along the interior as well. As we look ahead at some of the best players available here, because 6 quarterbacks went inside the top 12, some really solid players have slid into round 2. Johnny Newton, defensive tackle out of Illinois. Jackson Powers Johnson, another really good center out of Oregon. Kool-Aid McKinstry. Kind of wanted the Niners to take him or Cooper DeJean at 31, I'm not going to lie. Ladd McConkey, very similar to Ricky Pearsall. The evaluators are split as to which player is going to be better. Ladd McConkey, a little bit more banged up as compared to Pearsall. Donnie Mitchell, I liked him at 31, just a freak athlete. Kingsley Suamataia, we've talked about him plenty here on the show. Zack Frasier, there you go. Number 8, best player available according to our draft expert, Tom Downey. And then 9 through 16, Edger and Cooper linebacker. I wouldn't rule out linebacker in round 2 or round 3. Mike Sainris still, excellent slot corner. What a pick that would be for San Francisco. You can move Diamador Lenore to the outside if you wanted. Keon Coleman, jump ball wide receiver. Cooper Peavey, another dog along the interior offensive line. Roman Wilson, a slot. You're not going to go with the wide receiver here because you went with Ricky Pearsall, unless you trade away Deebo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk. Braylon Trice, Braden Fisk. Braden Fisk, defensive tackle to look out for, a freak athlete, with an extremely fast first step. The top offensive tackles, specifically, an area of interest and need for San Francisco, and there was a run of offensive tackles who went off the board in the first round. That's why the Niners didn't really go at that position at number 31. I think they can get a good one at 63. I really do. Kingsley Suamataia, Patrick Paul, Roger Rosengart, Blake Fisher. I would be cool with any of these players here. There's been a lot of ties to Roger Rosengart. John Lynch, Chris Forster went to the Washington Pro Day to scout some of their pro prospects. They worked one-on-one with Roger Rosengart, who played under Ed McCaffrey at Christian Valor High School in Colorado. Number 2 player out of the state in his recruiting class, did not give up a sack last year for Washington. 6'5", 308, 4.92 40-yard dash, the fastest among offensive tackles in the class at the combine. Light basketball feet, good hands. He can block, he can finish, good climber, good in the screen game, good scheme fit. Started all 28 games the last 2 years. Not a huge lower frame, so because of that, he can lose balance at times. Should he have return? Mel Kiper thought if he did, would be a top 10 pick in 2025, but upside with development. And again, if you get him in the late second round and he ends up being your starting tackle for the foreseeable future, maybe even right away, that's just a home run hit right there, especially if he's a top 10 talent. And what Washington does, they put their offensive tackles out on an island pretty often. And Rosengart, he showed up in those reps. Day 2 needs elsewhere for San Francisco. Again, offensive line, you're looking at tackle, interior offensive line, guard center, cornerback for sure. Defensive line, tight end, Jared Wiley in the 3rd round. I dig it. And then linebacker. Let's go through that list here. Top corners available. Again, really good players. But I think Kool-Aid McKinstry, Cooper DeJean, they go off the board early. Mike Sainris still out of Michigan, the top slot corner in this class. TJ Tampa, Ennis Rakestraw out of Mizzou, other players of interest. Top edges available. If you just want to get more depth there, Braylon Trice, Chris Braswell, Adisa Isaac, kind of falling under the radar because of Chop Robinson at Penn State. And then Jonah Ellis, who's met with the Niners in the pre-draft process. His dad and a couple of brothers all played or play in the NFL. Bloodlines. Top defensive tackles available. Johnny Newton, surprised that he lasted until day 2. Braden Fisk, Rook Ororo out of Clemson. And then Brandon Dorless, a player to look out for. Michael Hall out of Ohio State, another player who's pretty intriguing. Tight end, round 3, I think could be the range there. Jatavion Sanders out of Texas. Ben Sinnott out of Kansas State, a little bit shorter, but a really good player. Jared Wiley, tight end out of TCU, is a player that I've had in some of my mock drafts. And then Cade Stover, the tight end out of Ohio State. Now to linebacker, Edgerrin Cooper, Peyton Wilson, Junior Colson, Trevon Wallace, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., if you're looking for the bloodline disciple once again. Those are all types of positions that I think San Francisco tries to target in rounds 2 and on round 3. We're going to be live, day 2 of the draft, right here on the San Francisco 49ers Report. Night 1 was awesome. 30,000 views. The Super Chats were taken off. We have some more Super Chat MVP items, some raffle giveaways as well, and we'll see what happens on the Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel front. NFL.com mock draft has the Niners going with Kentucky linebacker Trevon Wallace with the 3rd round selection here for San Francisco. And Trevon Wallace is an interesting player. Has all the athletic traits to be an impact player at the NFL level. Profiles as a promising coverage linebacker. Dre Greenlaw coming off the torn Achilles. You might need some depth at that position. I get it. You took Jalen Graham and D. Winters last year. Really lacking the instincts right now to be a consistent player. So maybe a special teams player right from the jump. But if there's any team that does a great job of developing linebackers, it's San Francisco. So I wanted to include the mock draft for Wallace there. Which positions do you want the Niners to target tonight? We'll see what comes to fruition during the 2nd and 3rd rounds of the draft, and we'll catch you in a bit here on the show.